So I'd like to invite the panelists for this panel with three current MIT faculty to follow up on that. As we're coming up and getting started, just wanted to say there are so many people that have helped build this movement, and unfortunately we couldn't get all their voices included. So I just want to give another sort of collective, big, heartfelt thank you and round of applause for everyone who's contributed to make the open education movement possible. You know who you are. So, OCW at MIT exists because the MIT faculty have been willing to share their teaching freely and openly with the world. And so I'm so glad to now be in conversation with three of these faculty to share their perspectives more in the moment. I'd like to start with Annabelle, senior lecturer in electrical engineering and computer science, and a digital learning scientist in Open Learning's Delta team. Delta stands for Disciplinary Experts in Learning Technology and Applications, where she focuses on introductory computer science education. She teaches and develops MIT's foundational programming courses, working to make rigorous computer science accessible to beginners. We currently have 3 OCW courses by Anna. She's also featured in a recent Pot Chalk Radio video podcast episode where rubber ducks play a really good supporting role. Professor John Gruber is Ford Professor of Economics and Chair of the Economics Department here at MIT, former Director of the Healthcare Program of the National Bureau of Economic Research, and a former President of the American Society of Health Economists and the Eastern Economics Association. Published more than 200 research articles, edited 7 research volumes, and has written 3 books, including Public Finance and Public Policy, a leading undergraduate text in its 7th edition. In 2006, he received the American Society of Health Economists inaugural medal for the best health economist in the nation aged under 40. During the 1997-98 academic year, Dr. Gruber was Deputy Assistant Secretary for Economic Policy, the Treasury Department, key architect of Massachusetts' ambitious health reform effort, and served on the Health Connector Board, the main implementing body for that effort. And in 2009 to 2010, served as technical consultant in the Obama administration, worked with the administration and Congress to help craft the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. On OCW, John's Introduction to Microeconomics course is the most visited non-STEM subject that we've got, and a brand new version of his Public Policy and Public Finance course is getting lots of attention. He's also a recent guest on the Chalk Radio video podcast, and you should check out the bonus content where he responds to some YouTube comments. It's quite a treat. Christopher Capozzola is the Elting E. Morrison Professor of History. From 2022 to 25, he also served as Senior Associate Dean for Open Learning, in that role overseeing open education offerings, including OpenCourseWare, MITx, as well as several other programs. He continues to facilitate conversations about generative AI in teaching and learning at MIT and advocate for open, affordable, and equitable post-secondary learning in U.S. higher ed. For over 20 years, he's taught U.S. history at MIT and is the author of 2 books on U.S. political history. Chris was also an early OCW participant, starting with 3 courses in our big 500 courses launch back in 2003. So I'd like to start with a reflection on the range of reasons that people have for participating in OpenCourseWare. I'd like to hear from you, if I may, professionally and personally, why you choose to do so. So start with you, Anna. Your introductory programming courses are collectively, I think, our most popular topic in the last few years. What's motivated you to share this stuff with the world on OCW and to keep doing so?
Thanks. So both personally and professionally, there are, I guess, 2 reasons. So OCW, I think, came out when I was in high school, and I probably started using it in undergrad. There were, probably physics and calculus courses and a couple of CS courses originally, and I just used them as resources to help augment my learning with the assignments that were available for free and the exams that were available for free, and I would just use them to just help me study. And it is absolutely wild to think that 15 years later, I would then put my own courses that I was teaching at MIT on OCW, and I was reflecting on that yesterday, and it was just wild to think about just that, going from a user to someone who's just now making these, materials, it's been great to have this opportunity. Again, I have no words for that. And so that's my personal reason. Professionally, I think I've been thinking a lot about the way students learn, and they learn best by repetition. And so, repeated exposure to concepts is very important for students to learn the materials. And so I feel like if I put my materials out there, it gives students an opportunity to see the same material they might be learning in their own classrooms in a completely different light, from a completely different perspective. Me, is different than their current teacher. And so I think it helps them retain the material a lot better. And it kind of, it's a reinforcement learning outside of their own classrooms. And so in a sense, I feel like it's rewarding students who put in the effort to put in the effort to learn, students who have this intrinsic motivation to just go out there and actually understand the material as opposed to just, pass the class. So those are my two reasons. Personal, I used it. Now I get to contribute. Second, it's just pedagogically a good thing to do.
Wonderful. Yep. Thank you. Yeah. I have all kinds of follow-up questions I'd love to ask, but we're running a little bit behind time, so going to keep rolling. So to you, John. Now, you've also been a long-term participant. In fact, we've done several versions each of your Intro to Microeconomics and Public Policy and Finance courses, and you were also one of the first participants back in 2003. I wonder if you could cast your mind back to that early moment when you were first invited to participate in this thing that we didn't know what it would turn into. What motivated you to take the leap?
You made it incredibly easy. Look, we're getting a lot of praise, but what's it involve? I got to put a mic on when I lecture. I got to upload my problem sets and notes, and then you come back to me and say, it's done, look at it. I'm like, okay, that's great. What's not to like? You just made it the resources MIT put in to making this easy for our incredibly busy faculty are the difference maker. If MIT had come to me and said, look, we want you to go record a whole bunch of separate lectures, I would have said no. Basically, we are busy people, and you have taken the resources to make it easy. And the benefit to me all comes from something that no one under 45 or under 50 will understand, which is there used to be a time before phones when you talked to people on planes. You won't remember this. And every single time I sat down next to someone and said I taught economics, they'd say to me, God, that's the worst course I ever took. And I thought, how can this be? I said I'm not your favorite, but it can't be your worst. I thought it's just taught badly. Often it's taught in high schools by the gym teacher or the history teacher. They don't know what they're teaching. And so to me, the benefit is to be able to get the world to understand economics in much better and improve their lives in that way.
Wonderful. Thank you. Chris, I'm especially curious, having published on OCW, then you took the leap to join the family and work with us very closely for a number of years. What drew you in to just be that much more involved in this open courseware work?
Yeah, no, it was a great adventure, and part of it is, I blame Sanjay Sarma for coming up with the idea. But I think the real answer is I'm going to start actually with an equation. And that equation is 4 plus 10 equals 16, right? So Anna's sitting here saying, what's going on over in the humanities?
God, we let this guy in OCW. I'm not sure we want him teaching our students.
So those are UN Sustainable Development Goals. 4 is education, 10 is reducing inequality, and 16 is just and democratic institutions. Right? And so I just fundamentally believe that 4 plus 10 equals 16. And I believe that if that MIT, through OpenCourseware, and all of our open education initiatives, right, has committed, right, to solving that problem. Right? And I just wanted to kind of roll up my sleeves and be part of it. And I had the chance to work with 175 amazing staff members who make that happen every day.
Thank you. Yeah, we're grateful that you made that leap.
So yes, 4 plus 10 equals 16.
I'm going to remember that. Thank you. Yeah. I want to turn a little bit more attention to the stories of impact that you've heard. John, you referred to the people you've sat next to in the airplane who didn't necessarily have a good experience. Is there a story of positive impact that you've heard from things that you've shared yourself or more broadly in open education that really stands out for you?
Yeah, I'm arrogant enough that I keep a little folder of all the nice emails I get, and I started to go through them, and rather than just reading a particular one, I just thought I would reflect on the incredible diversity of countries and people that I hear from who say, I never thought I could take a class of this quality. I never thought I could learn so much about economics. Thank you so much for setting me on this educational path or for educating me. And I guess personally, I love particularly the ones that say, now I'm going to go study economics. That's what I wanted. And I love in particular the messages I get, which are, I didn't really know about economics. I took your class. I'm going to go major economics. I'm going to go further in economics. And that is just incredibly gratifying.
Wonderful. Thank you. How about you, Anna? Anything stand out?
I have not been recognized on an airplane yet. That's very growth mindset.
I bet it's coming.
Yeah, I know, growth mindset of me. Again, I don't have any specific story, but like John here, I think it's just there's like an incredible reach that OCW has. So I've also been contacted by students who have taken the courses, and they're 8-year-olds who have taken the courses. There are 80-year-olds who have taken the courses. There are students who are blind who have taken these courses and successfully gone through it. There are people who go through power outages every single day, and they have successfully gone through the course. And it's just like this motivation to just, their love of learning that just kind of pushes them on to just continue and complete these courses. And also educators have taken the courses and have gone on and taken some of the things that we implement in our classrooms and implemented in their own. Like in Nigeria especially, they've taken a lot of things that we've done and just kind of implemented in their own. So yeah, just a huge reach and love of learning.
Yeah,
it's amazing to see. Yep.
Yeah, I'll lift up the investments that we make to make sure that our content is accessible in all of the different manifestations. Really glad to hear that. Chris, any particular impact stories for you?
There are so many, but I think it's worth putting a thumb on the scale for the people who take OCW materials and do things with them that we didn't imagine, either in our own classrooms or at Open Learning, right? And that's the fundamental sort of motivation, I think, behind OpenCourseWare and why it's openly licensed, allows for reusing, remixing, and sort of allowing people to do creative things with it. And of course, some of that most creative stuff happens when people need to solve their own educational challenges, right? And we heard from Sophia from Ukraine in the video, and there have been many other learners who are displaced, refugees, et cetera, who have not let that displace or deter their educational mission. And that's been super inspiring over the last few years.
Yeah. Good, thank you. Next question I'd like to ask has to do with how wonderful it's been to discover OCW's reach across the whole lifelong learning spectrum. There was an idea, I think, originally that it would mostly be used by other educators in school settings, and well over half of our reach and impact has nothing to do with people who are officially in school. And each of you teaches a topic that feels like especially sort of resonant with sort of broad citizen awareness at this moment. What perspective might you have about what OCW and open education more broadly can do to support people's lifelong engagement in this field that you are very deeply connected to? And Chris, I'd like to start with you. This being a moment when so much history is being made.
Yes. More of it every day.
Yes.
And I think, I'm going to answer that question not just thinking about American history, although I'll get back to that. But I think in many ways, all of these big concepts that we talk about right now around lifelong learning, around workforce development, all of those imagine people who are going to school forever, right? People who they may get a degree or not, but they will never graduate, right? They will always be learners. And if you trace that back to its intellectual roots, I think you get back to 2001 and the launch of OpenCourseWare. right? Because you can't be a lifelong learner unless there's lifelong learning materials out there, right? And I think that in order to kind of empower those learners, OCW and all of MIT's initiatives play a real role in that.
Good. Thank you. John, how about you? So much attention is put on this thing that we call the economy and its intersections with people's lives. What do you hope for there?
Look, I think another moment while I was making history where we're struggling with democracy as a world right now, and there is a fundamental link between being well-educated and supporting democracy. The bedrock of authoritarian leaders is they try to cut down education. They try to limit people's ability to understand what's going on in the world. And the fundamental resource we can provide to fight that is free online education, so that people around the world can be informed about what's really going on, about how to program a computer, about what's going on in history, about how economies work, so that they can understand that they should support free and democratic societies to make the best decisions and to support people in the best way. And I just can't think of a better way than what y'all have done in making this kind of resource available freely to people, so that all over the world where their leaders may be trying to stop them from getting the education they deserve and need, they're meeting this human goal of getting that education.
Great. And Anna, learning the program has been for the past bunch of years an incredible sort of gateway into better jobs and so forth, and so much change afoot with what's happening with AI. How do you think about this?
So I'm not super worried about Gen AI taking over our jobs. I'm super excited about it because, not because I don't want the jobs, because it will evolve as things always do. So I think, if I wore a hoodie, I'd put that on right now, because the thing about computer science is you think about just hackers supposed to write code really quickly and come up with it quickly and just type. But it's not about that, and I think that's been a barrier for a lot of people to get into computer science and programming, because that is the misconception. Even now, I think that's the misconception. But with Gen AI coming on board, that part of doing the actual coding is now going to be outsourced most of the time to Gen AI. So I personally think that now the computer science education is going to go into the bookend parts of programming and computer science, which is the creative part of coming up with the solution, and you don't need to type for that. You just need a pen and pencil and creativity. And then the other part is the testing. So you get code back. How do you know if it's right or not? And you'd have to do that whether you did it yourself or whether the AI wrote it for you. You can't really trust yourself or the AI. So both of those pieces are a lot more creative than just type code. So I think it's going to make programming a lot more accessible to people who, it's no longer like this hacker, thing. It's now just going to be coming up with solutions to problems, and then figuring out, what are some tests that I need to run? What are some possible, ways that I can break this code or things like that? So, yeah.
So we'll keep learning about that.
Keep learning about it, and yeah.
Good. All right. I'd like to wrap up with just an open question briefly. What's a hope that you have for the future of this work? We're celebrating the 25 years today and also projecting forward into the future. Anna, anything you'd like to start with there?
Yeah, so I hope that OCW continues to be offered exactly as is, no strings attached. I think learners know what they're getting into when they see OCW. It's been the same for 25 years, and there's no hidden fees, nothing like that. It's a very incredibly simple model for what learners get out of it, right? So you have useful content and a glimpse into MIT courses. That's it. And I hope it stays that way, because it's very simple and it works well.
Thank you. John?
I hope that we can find a more effective hybrid of online learning and in-person learning to provide lower cost educational opportunities. I think OCW has been incredible. It must be continued to be offered. At the same time, I feel like the labor market is not yet recognizing the credentialism of OpenCourseWare because they still want some of that real college feel. And I'm hoping that we can figure out a way, Esther in the video talked about flipped classrooms. We can figure out a way to effectively partner with what we're doing with in-person instruction to provide a lower cost educational alternative. I wish MIT could be offered to 10 times as many people. It can't physically, it can online. Can we create ways that we can take the MIT OCW material, pair it with some in-person learning that sort of the labor market values and that people seem to want, and produce much less expensive education for the masses?
Hear that. All right, Chris?
So, everybody all morning has been talking about how big OpenCourseWare is and how big it got and how fast. And my hope actually is that MIT OpenCourseWare is something small, right? A small part of a much bigger open ecosystem, right? And here it's worth thinking about MIT's role in the development and adoption of open software through the MIT license and other mechanisms. The role of MIT community members in creating and sustaining the Creative Commons and other tools for creatively sharing work. The leadership of the MIT faculty and libraries in MIT's open access policy, ongoing efforts to challenge the market actions of large for-profit publishers that distort scholarly priorities. Initiatives toward open science codified in federal legislation in the previous administration that enabled the rapid, broad dissemination of publicly funded knowledge. And more broadly, both at our campus and beyond, an open culture of sharing, giving, and openness to make MIT into the kind of institution that builds bridges and not walls.
Okay. If I may, sounds like you're advocating, let's keep losing market share in the open space. Yeah.
Indeed.
What a
Indeed.
gift. Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. Thank you. Well, please join me in thanking our panelists here.